Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the GD Report. I am D.
And I'm G.
It's great to see everybody. It's not been another action-packed week. I keep thinking that we're going to have a slow week
Right.
with the people who are at the head of the Republican Party these days. It's not a slow week ever. So,
Right.
uh, got an interesting background there, G-Man. Looks like Coors Field.
That is indeed Coors Field.
I've been there a few times and
Yeah.
partaken of a few ice cold soda pops
Right.
and enjoyed that field. Very beautiful, very majestic park. Been in the news this week, hasn't it?
It has because, Major League Baseball pulled the old switcheroo on Atlanta. The All-Star game was originally scheduled for Atlanta, and they, after the state legislature passed this very restrictive voting bill, and their POS governor signed it into law, Major League Baseball said, we're not going to have the All-Star game in Atlanta anymore. We're going to move it. And they picked Coors Field. They haven't announced ticket information yet, but when they do, this is in my backyard. I'm going to try and get a couple tickets and maybe attend the All-Star game.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Interesting that legislative decisions have consequences.
Right. Yeah. And, just like elections. And, Major League Baseball is getting vilified by the right, saying they overstepped and they shouldn't have done it. They should have left it in Atlanta. I know you were saying Joe Scarborough said this was a bad move. I think it was the perfect move. I think it was the right thing to do. I think it showed the state of Georgia's politicians that, you can do whatever you want, but so can we. And we're going to do things that are going to hurt you. And is it going to hurt some rank and file people, the people that sell the soda pops and, work the parking lots taking money and stuff? Yeah, it'll hurt them, but it's 3 days worth of revenue that the state's not going to get. And that's the big thing, and not to mention the prestige of hosting the All-Star game and having the country's eyes be on you. Now they're going to be on Colorado. And
and I find it interesting that and there's about 33 states, I think, that have similar laws that they're considering.
Yep.
It's interesting on a couple of things. After being repudiated in a lot of elections, rather than try to fix what caused voters to vote against them, their answer is to try to make it harder for people to vote.
Yeah, because they figure if their guys will go out and vote no matter what, and the other guys are going to say, I'm not standing in that long line, especially now that I can't have any water, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah, your favorite minority leader, Moscow Mitch McConnell, came out with a blistering turtle statement, and he grabbed his turtle shell and was very upset that Major League Baseball had made this decision, and that Delta Airlines and Coca-Cola have both spoken out about it. And he said Republicans like baseball, and Republicans like to fly, and Republicans like to drink Coca-Cola. And he just, that corporations ought to stay out of politics, except for giving campaign contributions.
Right, to him.
Of which he said they give to both parties. Of
Right.
course they give to both parties.
Right.
But I find it kind of interesting that the party of the free market, the party that says businesses ought to be able to make their own decisions, the party that says that on one hand is accusing Major League Baseball of being the cancel culture, is now turning around saying we should cancel Major League Baseball and boycott them.
Right. Well, and they're all for free speech unless you're the Dixie Chicks.
Well, and I was just going to say, related to Colorado with this whole thing was a little court case a few years ago called Masterpiece Cake Shop versus the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. And Republicans were all up in arms then and said a private business ought to get to choose what it wants to do in the course of business. They should be able to say who they want to do business with and where they want to do business with. It should be their decision. And so wouldn't that same principle apply to Major League Baseball in this instance?
Yeah, you would think that it would. I mean, they're a business, right?
Yeah,
and exactly. They should get to pick and choose what they do and who they service. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just more hypocrisy from the right, and it's a shame that they're that way. It's a shame that their supporters can't see it, because when you point it out to them, they're like, "Oh no, that's not the case,"
Yeah.
But it is.
One of the most blatant things I heard was from some folks on the right, and you'll love this one. We talked about it on the pre-show, the pregame tailgate
Right.
party that we had. The was some of the right wing folks saying that moving it to Colorado was hypocritical of Major League Baseball, because Colorado has similar voting restrictions that were just passed, which in fact, as you know better than I, Colorado mails out a ballot to every registered voter.
Yeah, absolutely, without
It's
question.
you can still vote the day of the election if you want to,
Yep.
but they have mail drop-off boxes all over the state, all
Yeah.
over multiple in the cities. They're not restricted like this law is restricting it.
Yep.
As far as I know, it's not a felony to hand out bottled water or food to anybody waiting in line.
Because nobody waits. There are no lines for us to vote.
Right.
I've never, even when I went to, there's a school about 3 blocks away that's a polling place that you can go to, to vote if you want to go
Right.
cast your vote. And even then, I've never stood in line. I mean, you walk down there, there's 20 machines there in the school gym, and there's no line. You walk right up, a poll worker hands you your ballot, you put it in the machine, start, doing your little punch, and off you go. So yeah, we're nothing like Georgia. And for people to say that, it's just more ludicrous. So
yeah. Well, and Jen Psaki, President Biden's press spokesperson, made the statement and said that we got a little bit of volume there. She made the point that the White House welcomed if Georgia wanted to enact some of Colorado's voting changes, that they welcomed them to do that.
Yeah, well, and they're not gonna.
Absolutely not. There's already been this, so there's lots of blowback on the big corporations. There's lots of civil rights organizations pushing back on this. I did see one thing that I thought was super practical, was that the mayor of Atlanta has said that while this is being tied up in court, and while it's being fought out in the court of public opinion as well, she wasn't going to rest on her laurels, and recognizing things like the requirement now to have government issued photo IDs, and only certain things count for that. Hunting and fishing license, I believe, count, but college IDs don't count. There's a lot of senior citizens who don't have driver's license anymore, that don't have government issued photo IDs in that way, but they have social security cards. So what Mayor Bottoms is proposing in Atlanta is a set of a big informational campaign to push what voters will need to do in order to get registered. And she's got a program where I believe she's going to fund voter photo IDs
right
for citizens who don't have them, and make it easily accessible for them to get them.
Which is, it should be easy to vote. It shouldn't be hard to vote. I mean, it's
and if you're going to make
God-given right to vote, and you shouldn't be putting restrictions on it.
If you're going to
Republicans should learn that.
If you're going to put a requirement on it, don't put a monetary. If it requires you to have a photo ID, a certain government issued photo ID, then part of that bill ought to be that you pay for every citizen to have one of those.
Yeah, you get a photo van like they use for the red light, for stopping speeders. Convert that to a photo booth where you drive around these poor neighborhoods where people can't go get their ID, and take their picture. If it's that important to you, and all this comes back to voter fraud and illegals voting in every election, which is not true.
It's all based on a lie. It's all based on the big lie that 2020 was somehow stolen, when we all know it wasn't. There's not been any cases, even the Republicans who led the voting effort in Georgia. And if they could have found it, they would have, because they had the pressure of Trump all over them to do it. The part that kind of gets lost in the shiny penny, and even I went for it, of this law, is the the part about not being able to pass out bottled water and things like that. But the part that should chill everyone to the bones is the ability of the state legislature to basically take over a county election board
Yeah.
if they feel like fraud has been committed. And so
Right.
that's going to politicize the whole process. So if that law had been in place last time and they had caved into Trump, the legislature could have taken over Fulton County. They could have taken over Cobb County. They could have declared Trump the winner in both those counties and given them the state.
Yeah, which they will in 2022. You wait and see. I believe it's going to be hard for a Democrat to get elected in 2022 with this law on the books. So,
well, I will tell you this. I think it's going to be tough, but I haven't won much money voting against Stacey Abrams.
right. Well,
So,
and she'll be on the ballot, right? In the governor's race in 2022.
yeah, it is. She hasn't officially declared yet, but I think that should be coming soon.
Yeah, I would think
And
so.
I'm gonna predict that she's gonna raise more money than any gubernatorial candidate ever has. And I'm also gonna predict that Brian Kemp's not gonna get through a primary.
Well, that's an interesting thought. So,
I think it's gonna be.
You think David Perdue might run against him?
I think Doug Collins. Is it Doug Collins? Is that his name? The former representative who ran against Kelly Loeffler last time.
Right.
What is his name? Doug Collins doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I think it is Doug Collins.
Doug Collins wasn't that the former basketball coach of the Bulls? Yeah, you're right. Doug Collins is correct. Yeah, I think Doug Collins is going to run, and I think he's going to beat Brian Kemp like a drum. Because former President Trump did come out and criticize the voter law. I don't know if you saw that.
No. So
Yeah,
Trump criticized this law?
He absolutely did. He said it was weak and didn't go far enough.
Oh, I did see that. So the most restrictive voter law in the country is weak and doesn't go far enough. Well,
Exactly right. You kind of stuck your chin out for me on that one.
yeah.
All right. So we shall see, but congrats to Colorado. Congrats to Governor Polis and everybody there. I know they'll do an awesome job hosting the All-Star game. I would love to see them do voter register. I think the Democratic Party should do voter registration events during the All-Star game around the country.
Right. I can't wait for the home run derby.
Yeah.
Here in the thin air. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's too bad. Too bad Phil Necro passed away last year. I'd have brought him back to throw that.
Right.
I don't even know. Is there an active knuckleball pitcher left in baseball?
I don't believe there is.
Yeah, Charlie Huff's still alive. We could bring him back.
Right.
All right. Well, we went from Doug Collins to Charlie Huff to Phil Necro.
Right.
So Georgia's on a lot of our minds, and it's funny how it was all of last year. The whole thing came down to Georgia. It was one of the swing states for the presidential. The
Yep.
Senate came down to Georgia, and now the whole country's focused on Georgia.
Yep.
All right, so that brings us to our next topic, which is, I believe, our friends over at the National Republican Congressional Committee.
Yeah.
So got a little fundraising email from them today, and it also happened to make the news where on their homepage for donations, they have a box that is pre-checked to make any donation you give monthly recurring donation. And this is what the Trump campaign got in trouble for, because they were pre-checking that box and people were donating, $5, $10, whatever the case was. And then they were getting every month, sometimes weekly.
Yep.
Yeah, we're getting hit with those charges and didn't expect it. Well, the Republicans have this for donations on their homepage, but the checked box reads, and I quote, "We need to know we haven't lost you to the radical left. If you uncheck this box, we will have to tell Trump you're a defector." Defectors in all caps, by the way.
Right.
And sided with the Dems. Check this box and we can win back the House and get Trump to run in 2024. Make this a monthly recurring donation. They say check this box, but the box is already checked.
Right. Yeah, it's pre-checked. They just want to have that language so that you have no excuse when you start to complain that your bank account is being drained.
Exactly. And this also flies in the face of Trump's cease and desist notices he sent in early March, telling them not to use his name or likeness in fundraising appeals.
Right. Yeah, I noticed his fundraising has ramped up again. According to Politico, had a story about he's even got swag that says "Don't blame me, I voted for Trump," that you can purchase. So, that this all started when he was being out fundraised by the Dems for 2020, and so that the evidence basically suggests that he's the one who put the recurring checkbox in, and they had to refund $120 million when it was all said and done. Now, the Dems refunded some too. They refunded about 12 million. So far cry from what the Republicans refund.
I think the standard percentages I saw was that most presidential campaigns every 4 years have to give back between 1% and 2% in refunds. It's pretty standard. I think Obama had to do that. Bush had to do that. Romney. I think Trump was like 11 or 12%.
Yeah.
So far cry from that. Just another instance of Republicans not being able to play by the rules to win. I mean, they've got to do that. I mean, they're raising lots of money. They're just not raising it and for their committees, which gives them full flexibility to be able to share that money amongst candidates.
Right.
That's one of the problems that they've had in the past is that people gave money to Trump, but not to the party.
Right.
And his heir apparent actually for the first quarter announced an astonishing $3.2 million being raised.
Is that Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Marjorie Taylor Greene in her first 3 months in office raised that much money, which is going to make her pretty formidable. She could be a candidate for a Republican governor.
Well, I read where she's up for re-election next November.
Right.
And I read where the challenger, the Democratic challenger, I can't remember his name now, but I read where he's already raised $2 million. So I wouldn't count her chickens before their eggs hatch.
Well, I'm saying she may not even run for that. She might run for governor or Senate. Surely she's earned a promotion, right, after these successful
right
term in office that she's been there.
Right. And all the committees she served on.
Yeah, she's got plenty of time to fundraise.
Yeah, since they booted her off all the committees.
Absolutely. So that's going to lead us to our next topic, which what are we talking next? Infrastructure?
Biden.
Oh, Biden's
executive orders.
Executive orders. Why don't you tell us what's happening with that?
Yeah, so there's been a rash of gun violence here lately, including a big shooting here in Colorado at the King Soopers grocery store. So you can't even go buy groceries now without being in fear of getting shot. And so Biden and the Democrats want to do something about that. And, it's legislation with the way Congress is divided, it's hard to get through. So Biden's going to issue some executive orders. One of the first ones is to make what they call ghost guns that don't have any serial numbers or they're made at home. And these get bought at trade shows. So they're going to make it so that if you buy one of these guns, you have to undergo a background check before you can take possession of it. And, that's a pretty big deal. He's got a couple other things in the works. Nobody really knows for sure exactly what the executive orders, and there's rumors that it's going to be multiple executive orders, but they're supposed to come down later today or tomorrow. So we're going to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it kind of leads right into our next topic, which is similarly related. There's some lawsuits there's a lot of lawsuits actually against the National Rifle Association right now. And one of the big ones is there's some former members who've given quite a bit of money to the group, thinking that their money would be used for gun safety, for gun training classes to promote guns and sportsmanship.
Which is what they used to do.
Exactly. It was a sportsman's organization for many,
Yeah.
many years. And
So Wayne
what they
LaPierre got a hold of it.
exactly what they found in the lawsuit is that Wayne LaPierre spent, I think it was something like $3 million one year on a makeup artist for his wife for her appearances at fundraising dinners.
She that
Uh,
ugly?
I'm not going there. He spent one weekend. He spent $40,000 on custom made suits,
Right.
some really nice high end suits there, and just lived a lavish lifestyle on the backs of members, all the while basically being just a lobbying arm for the gun manufacturers.
Yeah.
So much so that even after two of the most tragic events, uh, notwithstanding the most recent ones in there you mentioned in Boulder and then also in Atlanta, the
Right.
shooting there. Sandy Hook and Parkland, the shooting in Florida and the shooting in Connecticut, respectively.
Two
Both
schools.
times, both times at those school shootings, Mr. LaPierre felt endangered for his own personal safety because he was receiving threats. So he retreated to a multi-million-dollar yacht that sailed for the Bahamas that had a crew of 4 people, including a chef.
Right.
Had 2 jet skis attached to it, and did that all for his personal safety.
Right.
So if you're a card carrying member of the National Rifle Association, I think you just have to ask yourself how much longer you want to fund a billionaire and millionaire lifestyle for the people at the top that
Yeah.
really have no intention of supporting the average gun owner.
Yeah. Well, they do. They want to make it so you can buy armor piercing bullets. That's what caused George H.W. Bush to resign.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every police department in the country was against it, and the NRA was pushing Congress to allow it. And George H.W. Bush, in a pretty famous letter, sent a letter to the NRA that said, "Hey, I can't do this anymore. You know, you've gone away from your core values, and you're not serving me, and so I'm going to resign."
Well, and he was a lifetime member, I believe.
Yeah, he was.
So.
But yeah, it's a crappy organization. It doesn't deserve your money. If you're a sportsman, there's a lot better places to put your money. Trout Unlimited, Ducks Unlimited. I mean, there's organizations out there that are deserving of money for sportsmen, and you know, the NRA is not it. The NRA, like you said, they're just a lobbying arm for the gun industry, and that's
well,
it.
and you look at no matter who's president, no matter what election we're having, the rallying cry is always they're going to take away your guns, and it just creates demand like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
I was talking to some associates that I know that run a gun shop yesterday, and they were talking about the fact that they couldn't keep inventory in. People still continue to buy up guns and buy up ammo, and it's like, at what point are we gonna? I mean, who knows what kind of stockpile the person down the street has from you, and without background checks and without mental illness red flag laws. I mean, that's why we're a ticking time bomb, unfortunately, for a lot of these events that have happened.
Yeah. Well, you know, every time one happens, people ask, what can we do? What can we do? And the thing is, nobody has the political will to do what needs to be done, like what Australia and New Zealand did. You know, Australia had a mass shooting probably 40 years ago, and they said, we're never having this again. They went door to door and confiscated everybody's guns. They said, if you want to own a gun, you have to belong to a gun club. Your gun has to stay at the gun club. You can use your gun to hunt on the land owned by the gun club, but otherwise you can't own a gun. And guess what? They don't have the gun violence that we do. Shocker. But we don't have the political will to do that because, you know, because of that Second Amendment that nobody understands, because it starts out with a well-regulated militia. And, you know, back in George Washington's day, that was the case, but we don't need a militia now. We don't need these idiots like they have in Michigan that want to kidnap the governor and try her for treason. You know, that's not what the country is. It's time we stand up to the gun manufacturers and the gun lobby and these right-wing zealot gun owners, and we tell them, you're wrong. You're on the wrong side of history. We're tired of our kids getting killed. We're tired of being in fear every time we go to the drugstore or the grocery store or the movie theater. We're going to take every freaking gun in America and we're going to put it in a smelter and melt them down. You want to belong to a gun club and hunt on gun club land? Fine, you can do that, but that's the only way you're getting a gun. And we need to have law enforcement, which is another problem, go door to door and search and take people's guns. You have to have a driver's license to drive, but you don't have to have a license to shoot a gun. I mean, this thing has got to change, and America has to grow a backbone and say enough is enough. And those kids at Parkland, they started the movement. It kind of died out. There'll be another school shooting. That's a given. There'll be another restaurant shooting. There'll be another. Last week there was another shooting out in California. 5 people were killed.
We don't talk about it. I mean, it's like the next one happens, we don't talk about the last one.
Right. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, when Columbine happened right here in Colorado, the world stopped for a day. Sporting events, were suspended. I mean, it was a shocker, and people's lives were changed. And what happened? Nothing. We just become, another one happened, and we just become desensitized to it. And, your life goes on and you just tell yourself, well, it's not going to happen to me. And then guess what? It does till it does. Yeah. So it's just, America really needs to grow a backbone and say, enough is enough. We got to fix this. And, maybe the Dems get the blame, but I think in the long run, if they took a stance and they did that and they forced it and they used the Secret Service or the FBI to collect these guns, I think, it'd probably take 10 years to get them all off the street. But I think eventually America would be a better country for it.
Yeah, I think we have to decide if we were, there's a lot of people throw around the term pro-life.
Yep.
And they throw around the sanctity of life and all these things. And we're going to have to come to grips that if we're not going to address issues like this, we can't call ourselves pro-life. Yep. All right. Where does that leave us?
Filibuster.
So we got a ruling this week. One of the people in America were most upset with in the last few weeks was the Senate parliamentarian who gave the ruling that this minimum wage could not be in the COVID relief package. She said it was not germane to the budget, therefore it couldn't be in that bill.
Right.
And so a lot of people are upset with her for that ruling.
But it was probably correct.
Possibly. There's a lot of things you could say. You could tie it to the federal budget and what people are gonna, what's the minimum wage that federal government workers can make. There's technical ways to make it fit, but she had to come down somewhere,
Yeah.
And so that's how she came down on the bill. But she did issue a ruling this week that said that Democrats have the ability to either revise the 2020 budget resolution or attach other things to the 2021 budget resolution, which is a fancy way of saying they can definitely pass the infrastructure package that President Biden has proposed through reconciliation. So it'll either be one package or two, depending on how they want to set it up, but they've got the flexibility to be able to get it done.
Right.
And it's a big blow to Republicans. Although, I kind of get tired of hearing that, because every time they're in power, they use reconciliation.
Yeah.
To pass tax cuts and to pass the laws that they want.
And put Supreme Court justices on the bench.
Exactly. They change the rules for that every time. And then they cry crocodile tears whenever they're not in power and say, you better not do what we just did.
Right.
Or next time we're going to do it. And you should know that next time, right now, if if Trump had won and it was 50-50 and Mike Pence was a tie-breaking vote, you don't think they'd be jamming through everything they could?
Oh yeah, especially judges.
So we did also get, I don't know if we talked about that last time, but President Biden did put out his first group of federal bench nominees.
Yeah, I don't
And
think we did.
shockingly, they're very diverse as opposed to
Right.
the last president's picks, including the first, I believe, the first Muslim to be nominated for the federal bench.
Yep.
Several women of color, and some leading candidates. The candidate to replace Merrick Garland on the appeals court is thought to be a leading candidate whenever a Supreme Court seat opens.
Right.
Which we know that if a Supreme Court seat were to open right now, that Joe Biden would have to wait till the next presidential election to appoint it because it
Right.
wouldn't be fair.
Absolutely.
The people would need to be a part of that, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I noticed Stephen Breyer came out today and said he was against packing the court, that it would change the court's dynamics and would diminish their stature in the country. And I can't disagree strongly enough. I think the Democrats ought to expand the court to 15. I think they ought to put 6 more justices in there. I think Biden ought to nominate them and get them approved, before 2022.
Yep.
But I don't think they will.
No, I think they worry that that'll cost them too much, but
I wouldn't care.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. And I don't think it would. I think if they did it now, the American electorate has a short-term memory, and I think if they did it now, that come next fall, I think people would be in the back of their minds, and if the economy's humming along, there wouldn't be any blowback at all.
I agree.
And I would do all 6 of them at once. I wouldn't string it out. I would say, we're changing the court's numbers, and here's the nominees.
Here's my question, my big time question to you though. Would one of your appointees be Judge Judy?
No. I would, if I had 6 seats on the Supreme Court, what I would do is I would appoint 4 liberals, ultra liberals, in the same way Amy Coney Barrett is an ultra conservative. And then I'd appoint 2 moderates, like a Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
So, but I'd make sure they were all in their 40s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the Republicans do.
Absolutely.
That way they're on the court for decades to come. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous that, the minority party has gotten the majority of the Supreme Court seats. So,
well, I hadn't thought about this till this past week, and I heard a commentator. It might have been over the weekend, but I heard a commentator compared the way that the path that we're going down now, particularly with the election laws in Georgia and many other states, is almost a path to the same status as the South African government was during apartheid, where you had a minority of the population ruling a majority, even though their numbers were quite a bit in the minority. And you see that when you start looking at Democrats, hold like, what is it, a 9-seat margin in the House of Representatives, yet they represent like 20 million more people or something.
right.
And the same thing in the Senate, where it's 50-50, but they represent, 9 or 10 million more people
Right.
than the minority parties do, because you got the Dakotas, you've got Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, those states that are just low populations, and they have just
2
as
senators.
just as many senators as California does.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up today, why don't you give us an update of where we are on the coronavirus, COVID-19?
Yeah. So there's a new strain out that's more contagious. We're not out of this thing by any stretch. I was at my dentist today, and they used to have plexiglass up on in front of the receptionist, and everything. She wore gloves and masks, and they're still wearing masks, but no gloves. The plexiglass is gone. And I asked her, where did plexiglass, where'd that go? And she said, well, COVID's pretty much over. No, it's not over. I mean, we're not seeing the numbers that we saw back at the height of the pandemic, but the CDC just issued a warning that we might be headed for a fourth phase. So don't let your guard down. There's a pretty strong strain now out in California that is just as worse. I mean, it's just as bad, if not worse, than what we've been through. So keep those masks on, keep washing your hands, go get the shot. As we talked in the pregame show, just because you get the shot doesn't mean you won't get COVID. It's like the flu shot. Everybody gets a flu shot every year, and then people still get the flu. So
it's that, I believe that variant, they're calling it the UK variant because it
Right.
originated in the United Kingdom, but apparently it's stronger than any of the other variants that have been out there. There was a case we talked about on the pregame tailgate. I'm going to keep calling it that.
right,
Hopefully we can get some barbecue or beer company to sponsor it
right,
and send us barbecue. But there was a case in Mexico where a woman traveled from Minnesota with her daughter for a senior trip. The woman was a nurse practitioner. She'd been
Yep.
vaccinated for over a month, had both doses of the vaccine, and ended up contracting the I believe it was the UK variant,
right,
and got sick and had to quarantine for 14 more days in Playa del Carmen, which sounds great until you realize that they take it serious because they don't want it to spread. And
right,
so she was in her room for 14 days with an armed guard outside her door.
right. Eating,
Buffet room service.
Yeah, room service. And like we said, that sounds like a lot of fun for like 2 days, and then you're like, you can't even go to the pool, so you're just stuck.
Well, and there's, it's the same thing that people forget about. I'm gonna juxtapose for a second, but it's the same thing people forget about on the voting laws when they start cutting back the hours you can vote, the Saturdays and Sundays you can vote on.
Yep.
They forget that there's a lot of people who work jobs where they can't get off for 4 hours in the middle of a Tuesday
Right.
to go vote. There's a lot of people that save up their vacation time to take a week in Cancun or a week in Playa del Carmen or wherever. And if they get stuck quarantining for 14 more days, they don't have the vacation time. They're going to lose their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's serious. It's not, please don't listen to the politicians who want to politicize the vaccine, just like they politicize the mask. I see the governor of Texas, the governor of Florida are trying to politicize the vaccine passports that people are talking about, which, by the way, are coming from the private industry because things like cruises and concerts and sporting events want to have safe events and safe travel so that their customers don't get sick and they don't get shut down again.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think that's a good move. I mean, I'm getting my first shot tomorrow, and when I get my second one in 3 weeks, I'll if I have to carry a card with me, I'll stick it in my wallet or my glove box in my car, and I'm happy to show it to people and tell them
we've been vaccinated, and I've got photocopies of it on my phone.
Yeah,
I've got the hard copies at home in a safe place, but I've got a photocopy in my wallet, and I'll show it to whoever. And that's the thing is, like, when kids got to enroll in kindergarten, what are they asking for? Shot record.
Yep.
Right. There's several countries when I've traveled in Africa, several countries that in order to gain entry into that country, besides having to have a visa, you have to show a shot record for yellow fever or for malaria, that you're on a malarial drug, anti-malarial or something like that. You've got to show those records or you're not going to gain entry because it's a public safety issue.
Yeah.
I saw a poll where they said 47% of white evangelical men say they will not take the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, people I work with, they don't want to take the vaccine. They think that they'll get the herd immunity, which it's just a myth. It's like, okay, so you think that you're going to hang around me and I've got my shot and somehow I'm going to breathe onto you and you're going to that's going to go into your lungs and somehow immunize you. It doesn't work that way.
No, in order for herd immunity, I think I read the stat would be we'd have to have between 4 and 6 million more people die
Right.
in order to gain herd immunity, because people would have to transmit the virus, and people would have to go through it. The thing that people are forgetting too, and we've gone a little long here, but that's okay. Get a little overtime today.
Right.
The thing that people forget is there are after effects to this virus.
Yeah.
And not everybody heals 100% from it. Some people are still, that had the virus a year ago, were on ventilators, are still having breathing issues today. They're still having heart problems today. And so we're not going to know the full extent of the effect of this virus on people until 5 or 10 years from now.
Yep.
All right. On that happy note, everybody,
All right.
everybody stay safe, please. Just don't, like I said, don't listen to the dumb politicians that want to politicize this. Wear a mask, wash your hands like G-Man said. Be in safe groups. Don't take unnecessary risk. Let's just be safe for each other. That way we can argue about politics and things like that. But if we're dead, we can't argue about those things.
Right. All right, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you on the next one.
Everybody take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.